Hello, and welcome to the second episode of Open Door Policy. And I'm your host, Daniel Walters. And for anyone who didn't catch the last episode, it is archived on LinkedIn and on YouTube. So we had a great chat with one of my colleagues, PJ, who shared a range of insights on a bunch of topics. We had some questions from the audience, and so it was a good show. I'm going to put together an edited version and post a shorter version as well. I think it sits at about an hour long. But yeah, I think there was a decent amount of insights there. As I've shared a little bit about this show, and as I covered last week, the purpose of this show is to provide the opportunity for people working in tech who have a challenge to come either join in the audience and can share the challenge in the comments, or to come live on the air with me, and we talk through it. So my day job is as a CTO coach, and that is based on a career of multiple decades in tech leadership positions, including in the CTO role and a CIO role, in a CPTO role, which is a Chief Product and Technology Officer. And so I can bring that wealth of experience from a mentorship perspective, but most of the time I operate in a coaching perspective. And so, I mean, there's a range of differences between coaching and mentorship, but the simplest way I think about it is, as a coach, I'm not here to answer or, tell you what to do. I'm not here to sit in judgment. I approach you and what you're trying to achieve with curiosity, and so the distinct super ability that I work really hard on is in asking great questions, and questions that can open you up to different possibilities or potential areas you might be blocked in, or blind spots, or those sorts of things. So now, if you ask me for advice, because I know it could be frustrating if you need something solved and the person on the other end is only asking questions. So there is a release valve. If you really need advice, you can ask explicitly for it, and I provide it, and that's when I switch into more of a mentorship capacity. So how does this show work? So as I mentioned, you can ask questions in the comments. You can also come live on the air with me. That means you can come on just with audio, or if you've got a microphone and a camera in good working order, you can join me live on the screen. So the way we do that, let me show the link. Now, the audience is not so huge right now that we can share this StreamYard link, and I've got capacity for up to 9 other guests to join the show. So you could use that link, and it's the same link every week. I will also post it into the comments. Not sure if it will post into all locations, but hopefully at least shows up on one of YouTube or LinkedIn. Now, if you're watching from YouTube or LinkedIn, let me know. Let me know that you're there. Drop a hi in the comments, and let me know where you're connecting from. And yeah, I'm also happy if you just want to drop in for a chat. Maybe it's just share a few experiences that you're having in the workplace that maybe they're neither good or bad. You're just thinking about them or puzzling over them. Maybe it is something that was really positive that you want to share, something you tried and it worked out really well. So yeah, I don't have a phone number to dial in, but the next closest thing, this is almost like a dial-in chat show where you can use that link and then jump on in the comments. Now, when I was coming up with the concept for this show, which I shared a little bit about the origins of last episode, it was with full knowledge that it's one thing to share your challenges in private, and there's already some friction and resistance. If that's not something that you're doing regularly, there's a hurdle there. And it's another thing to be sharing, a challenge in public. So that is can be an extra hurdle. Now, I know from experience, having run another show, which we do every month, CTO Lifeline, which I run with my co-host Noah Cantor, and we have had both coaches and also coachees in a live coaching scenario happening on the show. So I do know it's possible. But even in those situations, I know that it took a bit of thinking through. What if I went on the air and shared too much, or what if I went on the air and everyone thought I had a really obvious problem that everyone except for me knew the answer. Well, these are the things that people very naturally worry about. What I can say is that this is designed and conceived to be a safe space. Now, it is a safe public space, but it is a safe space. With me as the online coach, I am extremely curious and interested in your challenges. So if you've got a problem that you're working through and it's providing you some worry or some stress, I am very keen to help you address that stress and find a pathway forward, to help you identify options in terms of a pathway forward. And that's really the purpose of coaching. When you're going through coaching, it's not for the coach to provide you all the answers. It's more someone to partner with, part sounding board, part advisor, part someone who can ask questions so that can help your mind find some different pathways, and to help you identify options that you can take. And then your context better than anyone else, and so you can review the options that you've identified and decide which of those you think has the strongest likelihood for success. So as I said, in conceiving this show, I knew that it was a high probability that in running this week to week, that in some weeks there'd be no one with a problem to solve. And so I am prepared. I am keen on experimenting with the different ways in terms of how I communicate about the show, how the format of the show, all the things I can do that can lower the barrier for entry help reduce any sort of stress or concern anyone might have from participating. Last week, PJ jumping on board, the experiment there was in seeing others participate within the show. Does that ease or bring more comfort for others considering participating? That was, for leaders who have run office hours session. That's the idea of, I'll be available in this office for a private chat, the door open, you're welcome to come in and join, whoever has a challenge. And leaders often do that on a consistent basis, a consistent time, so that people learn to know that channel is available to them. And so initially, when you start doing that as a leader, the same thing may happen where you've got a few times where you run it and no one knocks on your door to pop in for a chat. But over time, when people know that they can rely on that being available, you start to end up with a little bit of a line, of people looking to have a chat and share, whatever issues or challenges are on the top of their mind at the time. And so by making this show regular, consistent on a consistent basis, 1 p.m. Thursdays, New Zealand daylight time, then if you're working away and you come across an issue or friction or challenge, then you can go, oh yeah, well, I know I've got this resource available to me, so I can, in a couple of days' time, the open door policy show is on, and I can jump in and mull over that particular challenge with Daniel. Another out of left field approach I was thinking of, with a maybe low probability of success, but I thought I would try it anyway, is how else can I make it feel more informal? And so came up with this idea. So I recently bought a new game through Steam, and it is called Tiny Glade. So Tiny Glade is and it's nighttime in Tiny Glade at the moment. Tiny Glade is a casual gaming, sandbox, which really, the aim is really just to build and create. So, on anything that you see, you can hover over it, and there are options to manipulate those in various different ways. And so, yeah, I can zoom in, I can rotate the camera. So yeah, when I'm looking to relax sometimes, and I want to get involved in something that doesn't take too much startup or tear down, I can start at any time. I can finish it at a drop of a hat. A game like Tiny Glade can be very relaxing. So, any leader in technology, we all have our different things. Even more often than stopping to play a computer game, which I probably do once a fortnight. More regularly, I actually go out and shoot some hoops. I love to play basketball. I've got a ring at my place, and so when I'm having my Pomodoro break from doing some consulting work, or when I finish a coaching session, I'll go out for 10 to 15 minutes and collect my thoughts whilst shooting some baskets. So it's a bit of exercise. It's working on a skill, in particular shooting and dribbling skills, which is a very different pastime. But also, whilst you're doing that, you can think through work problems in a fairly efficient and an effective way. So I often find that I might start a 15-minute, basketball session with a problem, and by the end of shooting hoops for 15 minutes, I've got a number of options and an idea of what I want to try next. So yeah, it's almost like a form of coaching with oneself. The distraction of the doing in terms of basketball practice can in its own right help your mind to discover some different pathways to think about things from some different angles and come to new conclusions. And so, yeah, there's an interesting parallel there with coaching. So for anyone who's just joined, you can see a URL there, which I've also posted into the comments. If you follow that, then you can join me for a chat. Obviously, I'll pause my game and go into the head speaker view, and we can talk through a challenge. Or if you don't want to be on camera, you can jump in just audio only. Or if you don't want your video or audio, you can put your questions or comments in the comment section. So yeah, you've joined the Open Door Policy Show. Last week I shared a little bit about the thinking behind open door policy in terms of the title. So, a lot of leaders talk about having an open door policy. I also considered calling the show Office Hours because, as I was describing earlier, office hours is a similar sort of concept to what this show is. But there are already some very popular live streams called Office Hours, including one I watched. So I figured that that ambiguity with a popular live stream might cause too much confusion. But yeah, if you're interested in comedy and if you know of Tim and Eric, then Tim has his own show with some friends called Office Hours, which is very, very funny and worth checking out. There were also some other live stream shows called Open Door Policy, but none of them were anywhere near as popular. So I thought, given this is targeted at the tech sector, it would work well and give most people some sense of what to expect from the show. So last week we had some questions in from the audience. We had people from the audience, some from Southeast Asia, some coming in from the UK and the US, and of course from Australia, where I'm originally from, and New Zealand, where I am now. So if you're in any of those parts of the world, feel free to jump on in and say hi. If you're from somewhere else, let me know. Let me know in the comments. Yeah, I work with coaching clients all over the world. I really enjoy the variety that brings to the work, and also connects me to a key concept which I think is really important in technology leadership, which is the importance of context. So context is all the information that helps us frame decisions. And it is one of the reasons also why we should be, very careful about taking collections of decisions off the shelf from sources external to our business. So, for instance, taking on large-scale tools or large-scale frameworks needs to be considered very closely with the context that we know about our own business. I'll give a good example. Let's say I'm working for a startup and I have some needs, and then I'm reading some blog posts and things like that, and I see that maybe Google or Facebook are using, maybe they've created some technology or using some practices that seem similar to the challenges that we're facing. The important thing to note is the context for a business like any of the FANG companies. That's your Facebooks, your Apples, your Amazons, your Googles, etc. Their context is very different because those are much, much, much larger businesses. They've got people in just about every country in the world. They've got almost unlimited war chests of funds to spend. And so how they might solve problems can be very different to how you in your startup may need to solve a problem. So the context of, what your financial resource constraints are, what stage your business is at. Like, you're a startup trying to find market fit, or you're a scale up that's found market fit but looking to increase your penetration in the markets you're in, or to enter into more markets. Are you an established business that has found its cash cow and looking to extract and capture more value? Or all of these businesses are at different stages, different sizes. They have different customer types and all these sorts of things. And so all of those ingredients are your context that should go into your thinking and decision making as a leader in technology. Working with clients across different types of businesses, different countries, different cultures, I find helps me get more familiar with what is relevant to consider from a context point of view, and what are the different ways we can integrate and synthesize that context into our decision making, and how might that translate to different choices being made by different companies. So a phrase that encapsulates this to me is copy the questions, not copy the answers. Hey, we've got a guest. Hey, PJ, welcome back to the show. I don't think I've got your audio though. You're just on mute. I'll unmute you, or maybe you can unmute.
There we go.
There we go.
How's that?
How you doing?
I'm doing all right. Just solving problems and getting
Way to
stuff
be.
done. Yeah.
GSD, getting stuff done. I'm
Yeah,
doing
getting
well.
stuff done.
So you may be wondering why there's a game up on the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was sharing with the audience that doing this show week to week, the reason to do it week to week is creating that sort of consistent availability. So that's one of my perspectives for sort of lowering the friction for people to share challenges in public. But I am aware that there's a lot of friction for sharing. Even in private, it's hard to share sometimes for people. And so I was sharing that I've got a whole bunch of ideas for different ways to try and increase the comfort and reduce the friction. And so my experiment for this week was to put the game on the screen, which is Tiny Glade. It's one of those sort of goalless games where you can interact with the environment and create, small villages, or even cities and things like that, just by manipulating the environment, which occasionally, to relax in my downtime, is something I like to do. So yeah, hence the game. Do you get into gaming much?
I did once, a lot when I had time,
Yeah.
but I just don't have enough time for doing that. I
Mm.
suspect when my younger son, well, my only son, gets a little bit older, we might do a bit together. But I don't know. I'm just, yeah, haven't got the time.
Yeah, I mean, this is why I chose this game, because I find I've only got very small slices of time,
Mm,
and even with this one, I've probably played it once in the last 30 days, and once in the 30 days before that.
yeah,
But
yeah,
there's no, it just remembers where you were before. So I open it up and it's instantly on. You can play with it. My son yells out, and it's instantly off, and I'm
yeah,
down the hallway helping him out. So
yeah.
it's perfect. No learning before or after. It's just you're in it or you're not. What do you do to relax then, if it's not gaming?
uh, Play tennis.
Nice. Oh yeah, we've
Um,
talked about that before. Yeah.
oh, there's always something to do, a job to be done around the house or on the boat
Mm-hmm.
as well. Go down to the boat. So
Yeah.
yeah, there's plenty of things to do.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
just yeah, just hang out with the kids, I guess. Yeah,
Yeah. I was sharing the example of I go out and shoot shots at the basketball ring, so I guess that's pretty similar to the going for a hit of tennis.
yeah, yeah.
Uh, the chores around the house, plenty of problems where I've thought about options I can take whilst I'm doing the dishes. So, one of my
Yeah,
contributions. Yeah,
yeah.
you can make use of that time. Uh, and how's your week been? So, anything new on the front, or any sort of light bulb moments after our chat last week? Because we were helping out. I think it was Marco who put a question in the comments. Anything from then?
Not so much. It's just it's interesting talking about creating a normalizing sharing.
Hmm.
Because last week we were talking about what the question that came through was about trust, and
Hmm.
how do you create the trust needed. And
Yep.
I mean, you're doing the same thing with this show as what you need to do with a team of people. It's
Hmm.
exactly the same.
Yep.
You have to create a space that's normalize the sharing, and probably lead by example. And yeah, so it's all the same. We're just
Yep.
people, right? Just another context, same problem.
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. And maybe there's things I'll need to tweak and adjust to adapt it to the format. But yeah, I've started with the assumptions around the office hours I used to run when I was a CTO, and other roles that I've been in, which was just announce that you've got availability on a uh, consistent time for a consistent amount of time,
Mm,
sharing some of your intents about why you're doing it, and trying to make it as comfortable as possible. And yeah, I certainly, when I started, had some lonely days where I made the time available, and had zero zero people come in, but over time it increased. And so yeah, it's similar with this show. Just make the space available, and over time people get familiar that it's there, and then if they've got a problem, they may choose to use it.
yeah. One thing I did do over this week is I went to I've been going to kind of a marketing. It's like a four 1 hours of a kind of a marketing course
Hmm.
on just how to create an offering in the marketplace, and and it's really interesting. And in the technology sector, it's just so hard to actually present something that's easy for anyone to understand, and something that someone wants, something that someone wants without needing to understand a whole stack of jargon and bits and pieces. And, I mean, I've been doing it I've been doing it for my whole career, and it's still actually a struggle to
Yeah.
actually put it into, what would I want to present to the marketplace, and what would my offering be, if I wanted to do that.
Yeah.
It's amazing how hard it is. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not easy, but it is a good sort of cross-functional skill because
Mm,
we're selling all the time, like even within
I
our
know.
own organizations. Yeah, like
No, totally.
just I've got this idea, and how do I get it across in a way that someone in a
Mm,
different department with a different background and set of experience, how do I communicate in a way that it's meaningful for them? So yeah,
yeah.
it's not easy, and you're always I find I'm always trying to learn learn about how to do it better.
No, totally, totally. And I thought this time round, I would probably be able to do it quite quickly. Um, yeah, but it's just never easy.
Mm. Yeah, I think it's also tricky in terms of like when the product is yourself as well. So in over the last couple of years, it's getting into the consulting and coaching business.
Mm,
You're not just selling, a solution or an idea. You're selling the different ways that you can help people. And so I think
yeah,
it's trickier because of that, because it's like, how do you separate it from yourself?
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, in the marketing course, they would say that that's not focused enough, and
Hmm.
you need to go to the market with a solution to a problem that people
Hmm.
understand.
Yeah.
And so I mean, it was probably slightly more geared. Oh, it was geared to the individual offering
Hmm.
services, but um, I don't know. Other services seem easier to pinpoint. I think
Hmm.
because you before I came in, you were talking about context, and
Hmm.
um, in our industry, we almost aren't in a sense we're not an industry, because we actually work within many different industries and different contexts, and that's actually our industry. That's what we
Hmm.
do, which means you know it's hard to be focused and razor sharp until you've actually spent a little bit of time understanding the other person's context. But of course, if you're going into a market and wanting to offer something, you don't have
Hmm.
that luxury. So I think there's a real conflict there, but it does show how contextual what we do actually is, and I think that's what
Hmm.
makes it hard to pin down.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, people are using technology to achieve their own goals. So
Mm,
you need experience helping them achieve those goals in order to properly understand what
yeah,
problems that you're solving. Yeah, and it's interesting with marketers. So some, not marketers, but like courseware or learning about best practices and ideas in marketing. Some say to sell the problem, some say to sell the solution. So that there's clearly a
mm,
range of options out there, and I imagine they also fit their certain context well. Maybe it's like dependent on how well is the problem space known, how well is the solution space known as to which path you take there. That's an interesting
totally.
space.
So if people don't understand the problem, um, it means that there's an education element, and
Hmm.
that's actually quite dangerous or difficult in the marketing world.
Hmm.
I'll speak from experience with the startup, the Onery.
Hmm.
Um, so this was about getting people into their first home, and presenting a different way of actually getting a deposit together, a different way of saving.
Hmm.
And where we came unstuck, I would say, is you had to educate so people understood the problem, and then the owner had a place to sit. So there's a lot of work to be done in the marketplace before you actually presented the solution.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if people don't understand the problem, you know, it's a difficult place to communicate a
Mm.
solution. Yeah, obviously, because it doesn't make any sense. Yeah.
It's like going into that then that you've got a big investment to in brand marketing and other things to like actually
Mm,
communicate the problem and do that education you're going to have to spend to do that. And within an organization you can have the same thing. Like, all right,
exactly.
if I know that in tech we've got a big investment that needs to be made, but no one understands the problem, then
Mm,
I'm most likely going to be in a high friction area, so
yeah.
that may mean I've got to spend, maybe it's 6 months, maybe it's longer, building that context with my peers across the executive team and maybe others across the organization to create awareness about, well, here's this issue. It may not be hurting us now, but we can see that it will hurt us very soon. Here's the ways it will hurt us. Here's how it will cost us.
Mm,
And then, to then create enough context to go like, all right, now here are our options for how we solve that problem now that you understand it. And I find a lot of times technologists are trying to come in very strongly with the solution and wonder why the buy into that solution is quite weak, because the people, the others in the organization are not feeling the problem. And if you're
yeah.
not feeling the problem, then how can you value solving it?
Yeah. I mean, that's one of the. I think it's one of the probably one of the biggest challenges in technology,
Mm-hmm.
because unless you've experienced it,
Mm-hmm.
it's really hard to understand what's possible. And sometimes you don't. A problem and a problem is only seen as a problem if you know that there's another. If unless you've seen something to compare it to.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're lucky enough to have been thrown into into a different world where things are done differently,
Mm-hmm.
um, and 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 things are quite different, then you leave that context and you go somewhere else, and suddenly things that you used to be able to you just saw as, oh well, we'll manage that. You'll see that as a problem.
Mm-hmm.
Other people will just see that, oh, that's just that's how we do things.
Yeah.
And we've always managed that. It's okay. It's like, well, okay, yeah, that's okay. So how do I get from how do I get them to experience what I've experienced without them actually experiencing it? Using language and
Mm-hmm.
communication. I mean, it's really tricky.
And if it cuts across technology, uh, often an initial response will be, oh well, then that's the tech team's problem, and that
Mm,
some cases that may be totally true. Maybe it's like, it's 100% their responsibility, and they can address it. But in many other cases, it's something more fundamental. Like, we've got this issue, and it's going to. I mean, one I was dealing with in the last couple of years was around marketing technology. So, there's amazing platforms out there, but you can very easily get yourself into a challenge with managing, all all that information on the marketing tech platforms. And so, as technologists, you sort of know how that can build up and play out. But for traditional marketers who may have shifted into digital, they may not have experienced that before. And so it's hard to
mm,
imagine, how managing all that, all that information, or how that managing all that data may become a challenge, and seemingly overnight become a challenge. And so,
mm,
yeah, it can take a bit of education and showing, where it's starting to come undone at the seams to create that awareness. But there's no point in trying to act on it before you've created that awareness. Otherwise, you'll just have the people who probably should have the most say around use of marketing technology, which is the marketing team, pushing against you. So you're on a hiding to nothing. So yeah.
Same at the team level. If you're looking at technical practices, I mean, if someone's been writing software for 15 years, how do you come in and say, oh, hey, let's just try doing this completely different way of, writing software, let's do TDD or let's do, and it's invasive, it's not just like, oh, they'll put some stories up on a board and that sort of changes the way you manage the work that's coming in and how it's discussed. But now we're talking about, the minute to minute of how someone actually works. It's very, a little bit confronting. So, well, one thing I've drilled down into is you said imagine, and that's the key to it all. We have to help people imagine another way, and until they imagine it and start seeing into another place, it's not going to happen, is it?
Yeah. Now, I think in tech we're often, and particularly tech leadership, often guilty of trying to solve problems that people haven't felt yet. And we talked about this exact topic on the most recent episode of CTO Lifeline, where we had Dr. Jay Bloom and Ben Mosier on as guests. And so that line about, don't try and solve the problem that people haven't felt yet came from Dr. Bloom. And it's when you're adopting large frameworks, and bring it in with, a framework is a collection of solutions to problems. You by extension bringing in a whole bunch of solutions to think, the pains that the people may not have felt yet. So yeah.
I think and that actually, quite neatly comes back to the question you asked me last week. It's like, how do you start when you start working with with a team or an organization? And my answer was, and still is, the retrospective, because it's gold, because people are bringing their frustrations, they're bringing what's conscious, what's consciously frustrating now. And even if that's not the biggest problem, and you can see that it's going to cascade it down to something else because you've seen this 10 times before, you start with that problem and you start where everyone's at, where the organization is. And that's why the retrospective is so valuable, because it's not just, oh, these are the problems, but it's like, these are the problems that we're conscious of.
I write a lot about goals and thinking long term, but like you, I always start in the present, because it's too easy to take your thinking to the long term and then stay there, and that's where you lead to another concept that Dr. Bloom has shared about, which is gap thinking, where you just end up with this big laundry list of like, here are all these things that we're going to do to solve all these problems, and if we do them all, then we'll be in a happier place. But it just doesn't work like that, because everything is changing and evolving, and every intervention or change you bring about brings about more change. So you always really need to see, like, okay, since that last change, where are we at now? And the
exactly.
The retrospective is a great place to keep discovering those.
Yeah. And I mean, transformation or change, which is what we're talking about. I mean, we talk about evolution of software product, and taking baby steps, and getting feedback, which provides decision points and feedback along the way. I
Mm-hmm.
mean, transformation and change, you know, I mean, it should, well, I believe it should be managed in exactly the same way. You know,
Yeah.
and that's what we're talking about the baby steps, start at the beginning, listen to reality, get feedback. You know, you're
Mm-hmm.
getting your retrospective is what's conscious now, and then your retrospective in 2 weeks is, well, you know, if people feeling better about that, and what's the next thing that's bubbling up. And
Yeah.
so you're in reality, you know. I
Yeah.
like to let reality speak.
That's a good way to put
Mm,
it. Yeah, I agree with one qualification. I mean, I think that we should use exactly how you have described to understand our progress and to make choices about, which to take next. So we should be adaptive by definition. The one qualification I'll make is when people are talking about transformation as it may affect like people's careers, or their role or their
mm,
responsibilities or those sorts of things. I think it needs to be, or in my experience, it works best when there's a longer view and and then the in the moment view.
yeah,
Now the longer view may not be, it may not be perfect, or it doesn't have all the details filled in. But I've seen companies try and do a completely agile reorganization, and the
yeah,
amount of uncertainty that it causes, because we're like, all right, and next week maybe it's your jobs that's going to change, and the week after that maybe it's
yeah,
that can heighten the stress levels to a crazy degree, and
yeah,
really take away a lot of the safety that is important for people having open and honest conversations. But yeah, when we're talking like transformation in the local context, like a change that improves something within the team, yeah, I think it,
mm,
it should be absolutely in that sort of learning loop that you described.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, another saying that I like to keep in mind is nothing's ever nothing's ever true all of the time.
Hmm.
So anything I say is, there'll always be a time where it's not actually true, and I
Yeah,
and I'm I totally accept that. Yeah. If
it's
you
a
if you
great
if you
defense.
don't,
I was going to say it's a great defense against dogma, isn't it?
yes,
Because
yeah,
if you're not holding that to be true, then you're dogmatic. But if you're like, yep, in most contexts this can be true, but then there'll
yeah,
be times when
yeah,
it may, the context maybe even flips its meaning or changes its effectiveness.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if something's true 90% of the time in the context of the organization you're working in, it's probably
Hmm.
something with looking into and moving towards. But of
Hmm.
course, when you have that initial conversation, someone will come up with, "Oh yeah, but what about this?"
Hmm.
And is it valid to say, "Oh, okay, well, we can't do it then"? Well, probably not.
Hmm.
Yeah, so that's when I wheel that one out. Oh well,
Hmm.
nothing's true all of the time,
Yeah.
but in the generally, this is going to be useful and add value.
Yeah. I mean, it's a good way to deal with some objections. One I use is like, it's very easy to come up with a reason why this may not work. Uh, I set you to the challenge of come up with a few reasons why this could work, because that can change and shift the
Mm,
the thinking as well. Uh, because it's a very natural, defense response that we have to go, okay, well, I've thought of one or two reasons why this won't work, therefore I'll move on to the next thing, or maybe I'll just stick with the status quo. Of course, it's
yeah.
the status quo that sometimes is perfectly okay, but sometimes it's the thing that keeps us stuck.
Mm.
So yeah, a good tip there.
Actually, while we're on objections,
Hmm.
let's we could wheel out a few more. I'm sure you've got a few more too, but
Hmm.
another one that I like is this is a really important one. It could be applied to all sorts of things. I started applying it to when people talk about doing something big in their lives, like buying a house or
Mm-hmm.
or something like that. But it's certainly when you're talking about, making a change or doing something, people will say, "Oh, yeah, but that's too risky,"
Mm-hmm.
and I will say, "Well, there's a risk of doing, and there's also a risk of not doing."
That's right. It's a choice
But
as well.
people always concentrate on the risk of doing the thing,
Mm-hmm.
but you have to balance that off with the risk of not doing the thing. But people
Mm-hmm.
people discard that and only see one side of it, well,
Mm-hmm.
often as a bias.
Yeah.
So it's really important to open that conversation up and say, okay, well, yeah, okay, let's talk about the risks of doing it, and now let's talk about the risks of not doing it, and
Yeah.
let's balance it up and make a decision.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, to add on to that, when you're presenting your thinking around the way forward, uh, making explicit the do nothing case, that
Mm,
is if we didn't act, this will happen, because it's a choice in its own right, uh, can make that more explicit in other people's minds as well. Like, oh, actually, no, there is a consequence
mm,
to not acting. Now,
mm,
we still may be perfectly okay with that as an option. Maybe that's still the most palatable option out of all the ones presented, but it should be at least something that's considered, and you're thinking about the trade-offs there. So
mm,
yeah, it is also why I do like to mix in the long-term thinking and the short, like using the long-term thinking to orient what we're doing in the short term. Because when you're talking about things like risks, they're not all materializing in the present, as we speak. Just but
mm,
they are there, and so some of your long-term thinking is about thinking about risks. So, what if another company comes and disrupts what we're doing, or what if the market changes? What if interests in our particular product lines reduces, or any of those sorts of things. So then you can ask the question, okay, well, what are we doing against that risk, and how probable do we think it is, and do we have the balance right? Mm.
yeah, definitely. Mm,
Do you have? Oh, actually, before I ask my question, I might just plug for anyone. So we've got people watching on YouTube and LinkedIn Live. By the way, I got an email about LinkedIn Live today. So 2 weeks ago, when I first experimented with the LinkedIn audio platform. And I was like, oh, it's a bit rough around the edges. It's not for me. I'll stick to what I'm familiar with, which is using StreamYard to stream to LinkedIn Live. And now they've just announced that they're doing away with the LinkedIn audio platform, and so if you want to do audio only streams, you'll use the LinkedIn Live platform and a third party system like StreamYard to get that done. So I was like, oh, I feel like I made the right choice. chose the platform that wasn't being grandfathered out. Yeah, so I'm going to promote the StreamYard link here that everyone can see on their screen, and is also being posted on the chat. PJ used that to jump on in for a chat, and you can do the same. So we've got space here that you could jump on in and be a talking head like PJ and I. It's as simple as using that link, and you can come on and ask a question. Or if you only want to come on with audio and no video, you can do that. Just keep your camera off. Or if you don't want audio or video on, you can jump into the comments and put your questions there on YouTube comment section, or LinkedIn Live's comment section. So those are the ways to get a question in front of us. But we've got about 5 minutes. PJ, anything? Any other topics you'd like to cover, or anything you'd like to plug, or yeah, the floor is yours.
no, I haven't really got much to say. Much more to say. Oh, one thing I will mention is that StreamYard URL is actually consistent across the weeks, isn't it? So you can actually
Yeah,
just
I just
bookmark
discovered that
Yeah,
today.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So
So did I. Yeah, I
that's
noticed when I
pretty
came in.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
StreamYard has launched a new feature called reusable studios,
mm,
and that's handy for me setting up these shows. It's taken a lot of work each week, so I've had to do that previously with the CTO Lifeline show, a lot of setup before each monthly episode. And yeah, it does have that bonus that this link. Now maybe I'll use a Bitly or something like that to tidy it up and give it a more memorable name and make it shorter and those sorts of things. But yeah, essentially that link can be used week to week, and that'll scale at least until we've got 10 or more people wanting to get on and have a chat. And yeah, and I'll continue to experiment with other ways to get the word out there, and also to increase the comfort factor for jumping in and joining. I appreciate that not every week everyone has a challenge that they want some help with, but when you do, you know that the Open Door Policy Show is here and available, and to be used as a resource. So yeah, we helped someone last week, so that was pretty cool. I've been in contact with them since. I haven't had an update on how they've gone with taking some of PJ or my recommendations, but I'll be keen for an update. We'll close the loop on this show if it comes through. Otherwise, yeah. And
did we get any feedback on what was sort of noted as some useful approaches from last week when you spoke to them?
I just got to thank you for the
Okay.
inputs and yeah, connection on LinkedIn, and yeah, so we'll see. We can wait with bated breath to see how that went. I mean, it's interesting. I find with my coaching, I normally operate on a fortnightly basis, and I think with leadership, it's often, I know with me, it was often my next week is normally pretty much booked in, with things and things like that. So when you're coaching, I tend to use a fortnight because people might put together their plans for that week, or like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that, I'm going to talk to this person, so by the time a fortnight passes, you're getting in and having the conversation, and they've actually been able to carry through not just the planning, but some of the action, some of the working with some individuals, and we'll start to see whether things are, working out, what obstacles they've found, and then it becomes a good basis for talking through what's next. So yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if we got an update in time for the next show, but we'll see. So yeah, I mean, I will give everyone the final minute and 30 before I close up shop for this week. If you want to get in at least with a question before the buzzer, feel free to drop one in the comments. We probably can't take someone on video with a minute and 30 to go. That would almost be comedy. But yeah.
You need to invest in a big red button to put on your desk
Yes.
to finish the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That would be pretty cool. It is possible too. I could hook that up. I forgot to plug stuff. I should probably plug CTO Lifeline. So next episode, so that's a monthly live stream. That's a much more planned live stream in terms of the topics and organizing guests. So next episode is early December, I think December 4th, and we've got Fred George as our guest. He's been involved in a lot of large scale transformational work and had some success there. So we're going to pick his brains as to what works from a transformation sense. And you can find all of the previous CTO Lifeline episodes, all 9 episodes, available both in the LinkedIn Live archives as well as on our CTO Lifeline YouTube channel. So join the channel and sign up, and you'll get notified of us going live. Yeah, you can also follow my personal YouTube channel, Daniel Walters, where you'll find all the open door policy episodes as well. And there we go. Plugs completed. Episode completed. You can enjoy the end credits. Thanks everyone for joining in, and we'll catch you next time. Thanks, PJ. Thanks for hopping on.
Yeah. Okay.
See you, mate.